In the studio with me is Greg Davies, the Victims of Crime Commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
We've been in the job a few months now. What surprises you?
Not a great deal, I suppose. What does, I suppose, surprise me is looking at the system itself, how we've made advances, some great advances in the last 40-odd years into the way we deal with people who are accused of committing crimes and their rights and the way they're dealt with by the system, by the judiciary and the corrections department. But we don't seem to have made anywhere near the same strides in the way we deal with victims. Victims are basically in the criminal trial system no more than a witness, and they are often, sometimes usually, the worst treated of all victims because, I mean, it's a simple fact. If you can, as a defence team, destroy the credibility of a witness, particularly the victim, you're halfway there to establishing a result of not guilty for your client. So they're not, by and large, treated anywhere near as well as they should be by the system. That's what I'm finding. And they're not communicated with as well as they should be.
That should be fixable.
I would think so, yes.
How?
Well, there's currently, His Honour Philip Cummins is chairing a committee of the Law Reform Commission in how witnesses or what their role is in the justice system and how they're dealt with. And he's invited me to make some submissions to that group, and certainly I will be absolutely doing that, and they're due to report next year. So these things, unfortunately, always take longer than we'd like, but to be done thoroughly, that's what needs to be done.
Is there enough support for victims now? I remember many years ago I went and addressed a group which the late Trish Rhodes had organised through Victims of Crime, through Vocal, which were families who had lost people to murder.
Yes.
And some horrendous, high-profile mass murders in the middle of it. And we sat round on a Saturday morning, probably about 20 or 30 of them there, and they just talked. Some of them cried, some of them laughed, but they exchanged this this sense of loss. They exchanged their stories. They felt they were achieving something. That doesn't happen anymore.
Well, it does to probably a lesser extent, or a less centralised extent. I mean, Vocal still exists along with a number of other volunteer groups that are doing their level best to help victims of crime. And I recently held a forum where we had about 30 victims of crime, many of them, or most of them, representing the various volunteer groups, including Vocal. Pardon me. And I was very, very interested in what their views were, because if the job that I'm now in is going to have any meaning, it has to make some difference to the system. And the best way, I think, to change or try and change the system is to change it to what the victims actually want.
Yep.
They don't want a great deal. You know, they want to be treated decently and fairly and have some support available and be told what's going on. It's not an enormous ask.
Is it going too far to say at times somebody is brutalised, either emotionally or physically, by a crime, then the system brutalises them again?
Oh, no, I think that's 100% correct, and we hear that story time and time again. You know, different people have different capacities to cope with trauma and stress, and simply having to recount what, particularly if it's an act of violence that's been committed against someone or someone dear to them, having to recount that time and time and time again, make statements, you know, appear in court, go through it again, and then just the system as it is, and there's really not much that can be done about it, but just the system where we have bail applications, committal proceedings, court trials, then someone's perhaps sentenced to a term of imprisonment, then they're either released or paroled. At all of those mileposts along the road, the initial victim or someone very close to them is slightly damaged, and perhaps more than slightly damaged every time. So the system of itself victimises victims.